Good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Freddie McMahon, and the focus of this short presentation, including some demonstrations if they work, is the digitization of knowledge. We're a Microsoft partner. We're an IP partner. We're co-sale ready. Our product is called Chatbot Author. It's available from the Microsoft Store worldwide. It's just under £200 a month, and it really empowers knowledge workers to build chatbots. The unmet demand, which is a good place to start, is basically 79% of executives are looking for a way of digitizing and simplifying the use of knowledge itself. That came out from Harvard recently. And in terms of then the opportunity from that is, at the moment, there's over 230 million knowledge workers worldwide. Let's empower knowledge workers to build chatbots itself. And if you do that, then it means those people that need the knowledge, they can actually have a very seamless and streamlined access to that, which oddly enough benefits every person and every organization, which starts to sound like the Microsoft mission statement. The actual problem, all over the world, people and organizations are expected to actually access their knowledge and being able to just find it and then start to read it and understand it. And this gets quite problematic because everyone then is expected to synthesize the knowledge in the context of their needs. And this knowledge is like regulations, statutes, standard operating procedures. So there's a huge amount of this knowledge already documented that could be transformed. And the actual solution then is empower knowledge workers, not IT, empower knowledge workers really to use Chatbot Author, our product, but also Q&A Maker from Microsoft to digitally transform the knowledge. And what we're finding is this stuff that's in these documents, all of it can be converted into chatbots using these two tools in its own right. So a use case then is one that was done through Microsoft with the local government, and basically the starting issue, and I agree with the last speaker, it's best to start with the problems. Don't talk about chatbots straight away, but their problem was that people typically can't find the right type of knowledge on their intranet or internal portal. And they said if we can crack it for our employees, we can actually then do it for local government citizens as well. So the first category of knowledge that was top of the list where people had the most difficulty was related to human resources. I don't know if that relates to internally for you, but this is a great one because it's just generic across all industries. And they selected a standard operating procedure that was then the most problematic one on that, which was to do with maternity. And then from that, the proof of concept. So you start with the document. The proof of concept took 5 days to build and test. That involved 16 chatbots and a conversational user interface. And the breakdown of that really was that one chatbot was done with a Q&A Maker. It took about 2 days. It's really easy to get going, but actually you've got to train the machine on the different permutations of the questions. And then Chatbot Author, there was 15 specialist chatbots covering different subjects. That took 2 days. And then IT to create a conversational user interface, which was just a browser front end, but behind it was a link into the API of the direct line, which is the chat channel of bot services. Hopefully you're familiar with that. And then as a result of that, that was presented back to human resources with IT, and they liked it really, really much, and they want to now plan to do acceptance testing. So that work only started mid-December, and already they're starting to plan now the acceptance test and the rollout. Bear in mind, that's just one use case. How many documents do they really have? Each one could be a use case in its own right. Just to try and demonstrate this, I'm just going to leave my PowerPoint presentation for a moment, and hopefully I can wake up the chatbot on this. This is the conversational user interface. This is the first interaction is with Q&A Maker. Sometimes it takes a moment for the chatbot to wake up, so hopefully it will. Let me just redo this. This is trouble about doing it live, isn't it? So once it gets going, it's very fast then. So this is, hopefully it will come back. Normally it comes back with hello. I don't know if it's the internet down or whatever. I just have to wait for that for a moment. On the right hand, I can't believe it's not responding. Anyway, this is Q-Mate. Ah, there we go, hello. So I'm just going to put in, I am pregnant. Lucky it can't see me. And when we did the testing associated with it, the first time it actually came back and said, oh dear, I'm really sorry to hear about that news. And this is a point about it's got to be ethically and morally right. And so, but it was very easy to change. But you've got to test it to make sure you don't have those. What type of benefits can I get? I'm really slow at typing, so there we are. And it will then respond back with an answer on this. And it actually then explains what type of benefits. And there's a ton of knowledge in there that you can actually start to go down deeper and deeper. But I just want to show you something more complicated now. I'm just going to say I am feeling unwell. And you think, gee, how's it going to respond to that? And unbeknown to me, at least at the start of this proof of concept, there's a lot of regulations and statutes and policies associated with that. And you've got to know how to handle that, or you could get the company into trouble itself. So this was then chatbot author, sorry to find you're unwell during your pregnancy. So we'll go down on that. First, we need to understand whether you're within 12 weeks of when the birth is due. So I'm going to say it's less than 12 weeks. And is your illness pregnancy related? I'm just going to say not sure. And then it really asks a ton of things. Could it be all these different things itself? So I'm just going to make it simple and say, look, I'm not sure really. And then is the pregnancy within 4 weeks before the baby is due? I'm going to go yes. And the actual outcome is their policy is that you need to take time off immediately. And the point is, if you don't do that, then all sorts of problems can be done. Now, the thing is, that only took less than 60 seconds to go through, even with my interactions on that. And the tradition is you've got to try and find it on the internet and trying to contextualize it. In terms of Q&A Maker, once you take a standard operating procedure, you split it into two parts. Anything that's got suitable for question and answer, then you just load that up to Q&A Maker, and you spend most of your time training on the variations of questions. Everything else that's not Q&A Maker goes into chatbot author, which is like a flowchart or decision tree, and behind each symbol associated with that, you have some properties where you just actually complete the form of the scripting associated with it. So you can just see that's up there. And it automatically generates the software microservice. So it's aimed at knowledge workers. Q&A Maker is aimed at knowledge workers. And you just empower them. They've got the knowledge, not IT, to actually build chatbots. Both chatbot and author Q&A Maker are seamlessly linked into bot services. So I shall return to my presentation now and just put it back onto slideshow. And so what this just get myself sorted out there. So what this enables us to do from the benefits from the customer perspective is, as you saw in that very simple demonstration of that proof of concept that just took 5 days, is that the end user that needs to find the knowledge, it's really streamlined and simplified. This is why you can get productivity improvements that are 10 times greater. And actually, the more complex the knowledge is, you can actually outperform the 10 times improvement on productivity. And finding more complex knowledge is not difficult when it comes to regulations. Now, this is a huge benefit, is that you can have instant upskilling. As you saw as we were going through the interaction on there, yes, no, not sure, you can actually have dialogue actually explaining things. And if you move to instant upskilling, you fundamentally change an organization to become far more agile and adaptive. And also, if you store the data, such as that one we went through, like you've got to take time off now, and you store that data against the employee or the customer, you've actually got compliance automation. Now, in terms of professional services, which is almost everyone really, the benefits for them is this is a new form of IP, which is the point you raised. Well, where's our IP? They own the knowledge, they own the knowledge maps, they own the data that gets generated from that. But also, it's a low-cost entry into something now that's called knowledge process outsourcing. Don't forget that, knowledge process outsourcing. Well, what does that mean? It's strategic. It's part of business process outsourcing. And I saw the slide earlier, which was just saying, is this a worry? I'll tell you now, outsourcing is just going to grow faster and faster. It's already 196 billion in 2017. But knowledge process outsourcing, which is more the knowledge workers, is actually the fastest growing segment, and it's already worth 28 billion, but it's expected to be over 100 billion in the next few years. Imagine trying to repurpose knowledge process outsourcing to be Azure consumption. That's the way to start to think. And then if you start to imagine, if you've got chatbots and knowledge workers delivering an outsourcing service, you can actually get massive competitive differentiation. And it gets better than that, stickiness, which was mentioned earlier. Well, how about 7+ years of stickiness? And you think, gee, what's he talking about? Well, if you can do long-term consumption sustainability, which is of course what your incentives are designed around, then you can add the dialogue data to the to Dynamics 365 case for employees, customers, citizens, and for compliance purposes, that means you keep it for 7 years. So 7-year type contracts is pretty good. But also you can add dialogue data to the data store, and you can then apply AI and big analytics to it. But you can also store the dialogue data to contracts and things like shared ledgers such as blockchain that was mentioned earlier. The lessons learned is best we find, certainly don't talk about chatbot to start with, but start with the problem, but start internally, because you've got to help the client gain experience of the digital transformation of knowledge. The second thing is a good place to start is actually human resources, because the complexity of the knowledge around regulations, statutes, policies, standard operating procedures is quite complex. And at the moment, all their documentation is not fit for purpose once you start to convert it to dialogue. So that's an easy win for everyone to go into. And engage IT early for co-development. So what do we mean by co-development? When you empower knowledge workers to build chatbots, you want them co-working with IT to do the more fun stuff that they like to do, with it, which is things like adding cognitive services for real-time language translation, storing the data for analytics. So in this new world is think co-development, empower the knowledge workers to work with IT to do this. And we think the best vehicle to start to do this capability would be Microsoft Teams, because if you can take knowledge workers around a community of practitioners or community of practice, and IT sets up this environment for the management and control of that, then if you equip them with chatbot author and Q&A maker, they're effectively knowledge factories. Start with one knowledge factory, add a few more, and then you could have 100 or 1,000 knowledge factories inside large organizations. The time to value, I'm just going to come into competition from this. The biggest players really are around the area of chatbots is AWS, Google, IBM. There's about 1,000 chatbot companies associated with it. But really, when you come up against this, and it's focused on the digitization of knowledge, but the thing is, Q&A Maker and Chatbot Author are knowledge-driven, not data-driven. Data-driven is expensive to do. Data is messy. Don't start with the data, you start with the knowledge. It's in the documents. There is no database in the documents. And none of the competition are actually knowledge-driven. They're all data-driven associated with it. The other thing is there's a massive red line. I know that's like a Brexit term, the red line. Here's the red line. You cannot empower a machine to rewrite policies, to rewrite regulations. It's a red line. So on one side is what do you want controlled by the people and what do you want to control by the machine? The market's been overhyped, it's overheating because they think natural language processing powered by machine learning can do everything. It can't do everything, there is a red line. And actually the low-hanging fruit, which everyone seems to have missed out, is actually start with the knowledge because there's tons of that in every single sector that was mentioned today. And actually then you start to think about it, there's a talent shortage. Why? Because there's not enough AI scientists and data scientists. Guess what? You don't need those when you're actually starting with knowledge workers. So it's a big shift when you start to think, let's empower knowledge workers with Q&A Maker and Chatbot Author. This is a big, big change. But it generates data, and that data then you can use for the stickiness and extra value. So in summary, really, this is about empowering knowledge workers to actually digitally transform knowledge from monologue to dialogue. And actually, as Satya Nadella says, let's go towards the democratization of AI, where if you can empower knowledge workers to build AI capabilities, then you're not constrained by the shortage of talent in the marketplace. So if you want any further details, my co-founder John Rawlings is here today, and we've got follow-up materials if you want those. Hopefully you found that interesting.